Fire by Meena Kandasamay. As we look at these poems, many of you, if you are regular watchers, would have noticed that I begin by talking about the age in which the poem was written. I'm going to do it slightly different here because the poem now is what I would call a part of Dalit literature. And what do I mean by that? This is a poem from a poet who is really representative of the marginalized. All of us are aware of the margins, not the main page, but the margins. So when we talk about people and societies and communities, we talk of the marginalized, who are those who have been left out of the mainstream. They could be blacks or Afro-Americans, as we call them today. They could be women. They could be the tribals. They could be the displaced. And so today we have a Dalit poet, Meena Kandasamay, and the poem is Fire. Meena Kandasamay was actually born Ila Venil Meena Kandasamay, born 1984. She's a feminist, poet, fiction writer, translator, activist, and much more. She is very much involved in looking at the condition of the dispossessed, of the marginalized, of those who have been by society over the years, over centuries, trodden and victimized. I refer to the Dalits. Born in Tamil Nadu to professor parents, she writes about both Tamil Dalits and, in a sense, of the dispossessed all over the world. Her themes basically are caste, annihilation of the differences, feminism, linguistic identity, etc. Her first work was Touch and published in 2006. Her second, Miss Militancy, published in 2010. She also wrote a novel called The Gypsy Goddess, where the style is convoluted, non-linear, and digressive. She has been accused of not being good with the language, but I think that is a statement that she's consciously making. We talk today about the importance of having Dalit poetics because the rules that apply to mainstream literature to judge beauty cannot apply to marginalized literature. So Meena Kandasamay writes with clear indication of what she wants to talk about and how she wants to talk about it. Before I begin reading the poem Fire, I want to quote Meena Kandasamay in another context where she said, "My poetry is naked. My poetry is in tears. My poetry screams in anger. My poetry writes in pain. My poetry smells of blood. My poetry salutes sacrifice. My poetry speaks like my people. My poetry speaks for my people." That is the mood in which I want us to understand and appreciate her poem Fire. Black satanic fumes shroud the blank blue skies in puffing jet black suit. Few flashy cameras record glimpses of destruction for tomorrow's papers. My dear friends, the scene is created, the tone is set. The tone of irony, the scene one of pain, of wanton destruction. This is a reference to the burning of hut after hut of the not so lucky. The reason that the government gives or that the people in power give may be any, but we are looking at the scene, and what is it? Black satanic fumes shroud the blank blue skies. Even the skies don't seem to have an emotion. In puffing jet black suit. And there are cameras around. There is the media. And why are they there? TRP, my dear friends, for tomorrow's paper. And then the huts continue to burn. Does anyone care? No. Even the skies seem to be blank blue skies. And then she goes on to describing, our huts are burning, regular huts in proper rows, dry thatches, conspirators in crime, feed the flames as we rush out, shrieking, crying, moaning, open-mouthed hysterical curses, and as if in answer, when the blazing work is done, fire engines arrive deliberately late. Please note how she's pointing out that we are not here illegally. It's not as if we don't have permission to have our huts here, because the huts are regular huts in proper rows. But remember, they don't have pakka houses. They don't have cement and iron and mortar. Their huts have thatched roofs. It's as if the thatched roofs have decided to become co-conspirators in this burning. And how do the people react? Obviously, when their huts are burning, when everything that they have lived with is probably now going to be left in ashes, shrieking, crying, moaning, open-mouthed hysterical curses, helpless, but who can stop their emotions? And then the irony of it all. And as if in an answer, fire engines arrive. But when do they arrive? When the blazing work is done. And then the punchline, deliberately late. Ensure that everything is burnt, and then we arrive, pretending to come here to help. These feverish cries continue in the same shrilly pitch, echo, 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 and finally reach up there. Now the up there, my dear friends, I leave it to your imagination. Up there to those in power, or up there to our God. Reverberate and sound as loud as nail shells cracking under nailed boots, and perhaps as distinct and defenseless. This double catastrophe projected in sighs and shrieks evokes no response. This being crushed by those in power goes on and on and on. And then the last couplet, those above are mostly indifferent bastards. Can you blame her for calling those in power this? Because no help comes to them. In a poem like this, what figures of speech can we expect when there's so much of pain, when it's almost as if she's writhing in pain? I think we shouldn't look for the usual figures of speech. Yes, the imagery is there, the tone is there, the creation of the scene in front of our eyes, almost as if we are watching a series of pictures, slide after slide. And therefore, my dear friends, in this poem, there is that imagery which is important, not the usual simile and metaphor and personification that I've been talking about. But of course, when we talk about up there, we have to remember that we are thinking about up there in the corridors of power, and we are also thinking of up there, the ever benevolent God. The irony is the tone throughout the poem. When we look at a poem like this, I think it would be wonderful to go back and read other poems written by the marginalized. Come on, move on to the Aborigines of Australia. Move on to the Native Americans, or who we call the Red Indians. Move on to the Jews, who were once called the marginalized. I would advise you to look at a book called Poisoned Bread, edited by Arjun Dangle, where you have voices of the marginalized of our own country, all in translation in English.